Yeah, I just got to go in an hour, so let's just go.
Yeah, so welcome back. This is Night Flight. Yeah, and as you can see, I have Stefan Verstappen and Joe Atwill with me, and we are going to talk about what happened with Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Trump and his plans for Gaza Lago.
Not so
Yeah, did you see
uh,
his recent video? Uh,
sure.
Trump lag Ga no, sorry, Trump Gaza. Did you see that?
I
30
did.
seconds long with his huge golden statue. And you haven't seen it? Okay, it's AI generated. First, you see people walking through the rubble, and then there is a little opening. And then two little children run through that opening, and they are at the beach. And the silhouette looks a little bit like Dubai. And then you see bearded belly dancers, and you will see Elon Musk eating some hummus. And then they show you the city, and the city has a huge, huge golden statue of Donald Trump. You see the bazaar, and there you can buy all these little Donald Trumps figurines, and it's some rap music. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's really rap music, but it repeats again and again, Trump Gaza number one. It's really bizarre, that video. If you haven't seen it, it's only 30 seconds long, and it's on
Judith, I
YouTube.
have a question. Are we certain that this was an official video from the Trump White House or for some agency that was representing Trump? Because I've heard that this was actually, a kind of psyop propaganda from his opponents. I don't know what's true here. I just was wondering, are you able to verify that this was from, official Trump sources?
Yeah, I haven't talked to him personally, of course, but
Well,
uh,
why not?
I he shared it on his Truth Social.
Okay, so it came from Trump's Truth Social. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, um, it's just horrific, and I mean, it's when you think of all of the human suffering that's occurred in Gaza over the last year, to put out something that's so vainglorious is almost, if this actually is something that Trump was, involved with, it could be seen as like a declaration of sort of the pagan satanic um, origins of the oligarchs. I wouldn't know how else to characterize it. It's sort of a revelation to the public about what the oligarchs have in their hearts, and um, it would be something that they would produce if they were absolutely confident that the public was incapable of any kind of resistance, to their programs.
Mm. Yeah, that was very pompous, especially with that huge statue of his in gold. So it kind of fits with Trump, you know. He is has very grandiose streaks in his personality.
Well, the thing that I don't understand about it is that I regard Trump as a Zionist. I refer to them as Masonic Zionists.
Hmm.
And I am surprised, therefore, that he would have the gold statue, because I know that they're, um, influenced by the Old Testament. And so this would seem to violate the principle of no graven images inside of Eretz Israel. So where does Trump get off putting, a gold statue of himself, as something that's, symbolizing his power? I mean, the first century war, one of the main reasons it was fought is because the Roman Caesars wanted to put much smaller golden statues of themselves into the Jewish temple.
Mm.
So this was, something that Jews couldn't abide with, and one thing led to another, and you ended up with the gigantic war. So I'm just surprised by that. I'm surprised that it even on a American political level, when you're dealing with the American public who are, kind of not mentally agile, that you could put that out and not have just, some sort of complaining about it, and that at the very least it's trivializing the suffering in Gaza.
Mm.
The idea of Trump, as he became president, he suddenly brought up these expansionist ideas, which really weren't discussed in the campaign, where he wants to take over Greenland, he
Mhm.
wants to take over Canada, he wants to take over the Panama Canal, and now Gaza seems to be another of his collection of colonies that he's trying to establish. So it's kind of perplexing, at least to me, because you don't really understand. It's not easy to understand, what is the purpose of this? Why would he be, bringing these things up at this point? What is he trying to do politically with these maneuvers? And I don't know, Stefan, what do you think it's all about?
Um, well, it's very difficult to judge what their motivations are because they are all, to a person, psychopaths. So they have no compassion, they have no empathy, they can't see themselves. And so for them, this grandiose uh, video of what they're going to do, which completely ignores, like you said, everything, the suffering of the Palestinians in Gaza. I mean, come on, you just murdered what, 2 million people, mostly children. You buried them alive under rubble. You were, sniping them, shooting them in the heads, and then it's like, oh well, never mind all that. Now we've got the big Trump casino on the beach. I mean, come on, like, I mean, how can you figure this out? Well, because they don't see it. They don't get it. They have no empathy. They have no compassion. So whatever it is they do, it's very difficult to figure out the motivations because we think in terms of motivations based on our own internal conscience. And if you have a conscience, you can't understand these people. You know, when I first started doing all these podcasts was about 15 years ago. It was based on my article and video called "Defense Against the Psychopath." What I tried to do is say, listen, we are living in an insane society and in a very cruel and evil society. But part of the reason for that is we are ruled by psychopaths. And one thing that I've tried to warn people, and that is, you cannot understand them. And if you study them for 10 years and you read all the research and you've seen them, you know them, you've been around them, then you finally get an idea of what these people are. But the average person cannot comprehend what these psychopaths are. So everybody in the White House guaranteed is a psychopath. That's I used to say that forms of government that with a monarchy, at least once every 50 years or so, you will find a monarch that is not a psychopath. But with a democracy, you are always going to be ruled by psychopaths. psychopaths thrive in a democracy. They always find a way to the top. So now you got a whole bunch of psychopaths there around Trump, and Zionists are psychopaths. That's part of the qualities that they have. And they come out with this thing, and it's completely tone deaf to any human suffering or compassion. And what do you make of it? I don't know. They're just egomaniacs. It's self-aggrandizement. That's what they live for. So I don't know what to say, Judith. I can't tell you what they're trying to do with all that. I really can't.
Yeah, concerning that golden statue, maybe Trump thinks those rules no longer apply to him.
He certainly is making that as a declaration, isn't he? I mean, he wouldn't have put out this kind of crazy video with giant golden statue of himself if he was concerned at all about, public outcry. I mean, this has to have been vetted in some way by people inside his administration who would, have the calculation as to where the population is in terms of response to these things. So I'm agreeing with Stefan that, it's an example of kind of a psychopathic mindset, which makes it really difficult to understand. I think I also use the expression satanic,
Yes.
sort of like organized psychopath,
Yeah.
but it's interesting because I brought out a book called Caesar's Messiah, which gave a completely different explanation for the origins of the Gospels. And one of the kind of resistance I got to my analysis was they just couldn't understand why anyone would put out something like the Gospels if my analysis of it was correct. And the reason that they couldn't see this is because they couldn't understand that the vanity of the Caesars was more important even than their political ambitions. I mean, in other words, they're one and the same in a sense, but they really wanted to, they had a sense of humor and a sense of self that is that of a psychopath. And therefore, exactly as Stefan said, that normal people cannot understand it. It's literally incomprehensible because, a normal person wouldn't, like Nero used to come into a room and he would have individuals tied up to a cross and covered with tar, and then be lit ablaze when he came in, while a chorus would sing, a declaration of his divinity. Now, this just isn't something that I think a normal person today would enjoy. You wouldn't understand that as something you'd really would want to bring about. You have to be a psychopath to be able to see this as something that's enjoyable. It's not enjoyment that a normal person they wouldn't experience it from that configuration. They just couldn't be relaxed with someone squirming around while being, burned to death. So it is a real problem, and that I mean, we don't understand our politicians, our political class, and we never will really understand them, because they are psychopaths so often, and so we, like sort of normal humans trying to exercise democracy for our self-interest, we have to, since we can't really understand their psychology, we have to come up with techniques to basically sequester these individuals away from power, any political power. This is it's a complicated thing. We have to kind of understand ourselves a little bit better, but it's really a critical process that has to happen. We have to be able to recognize the psychopath, and someone like Trump. I mean, when you get this video, I mean, there you have it. There you have the declaration and the evidence of the fact that this is a psychopath, that he's a liar about everything that he says regarding, human feelings. He's all lying. He never tells the truth. He can't. So you cannot trust him. No trust for this individual when he says that he cares about the price of eggs or this. No, he's just saying things in order to obtain power, and he's going to use the power to, in the process of being a psychopath. So we're not going to get any benefit from it. In fact, it's just going to make our world worse.
Yeah, another reason why I think this is not coming from the Democrats' camp, this video, is because if that had been the case, we would have heard it 24/7 since then. Yeah, and Elon Musk would probably have gone bad crap on X if that was not approved by the Trump camp. So I don't think that.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, they live in their own echo chamber, so they're going to go to their media people and their public relations people, and they say, "Well, what do you think of this? And should we release it?" But they're all psychopaths too, so they can't give any reasonable feedback about it. It's just, they live in this echo chamber of, and as Joe says, they're satanic. And so, oh, it looks good to me. It's all about Satan and evil. Sounds good. Let's release it. They don't know, right?
Yeah.
So who is there in their circle of people that has a conscience that can speak out and correct them and say, listen, this is really tone deaf, all the blood and murder and slaughter and torture and death and destruction that's been wreaked on these people for the last, what is it now, year and a half?
Year and a half.
And now we're going to come out and say, but good days are ahead. It's raining pennies from heaven. Come on.
Actually, that is in the video as well. People dancing on the beach, and but not pennies. Dollar notes are raining down.
Yeah, that's from the movie from the 1930s. Remember that musical, Pennies from Heaven? It's raining pennies from heaven, and that was, came out during the Great Depression, and everybody's just running around, money's falling from the sky. Come on, Jesus Christ. And again, like all psychopaths, they can never have an original idea. So, anyways, that's I wouldn't pay too much attention to it. Like most of these things, I see them and then I immediately forget them, and I don't care to really contemplate it. Like it's when you watch the media, it's a nonstop sewage dump, right? So, I want to stop. Oh, look, there's a turd there, and oh, look, this turd looks purple. Oh, what? Who cares? Who cares with these people? I ignore everything they do. I ignore everything they say. Well, because like Joe says, they lie. But that's one of the key characteristics of psychopaths. They are compulsive liars. Even, and they've done studies on that, even when it would suit their case better to tell the truth, they still lie. They can't help themselves. So everything that comes out of the White House and everything that has come out of the White House for the last 150 years has all been lies. I don't know what people don't understand about that. I am a strategist, and my first book was on ancient Chinese strategies and tactics, ruthless, cunning, underhanded, backstabbing strategy, more like Machiavelli. But one thing that you learn is that it's always a lie. Everything is a lie from them. So, we can try to, figure out what they mean and what's the implication of this. Is like I said, it's like sword and pepper from fly shit. Good luck. Go ahead, spend a lot of time deconstructing all these things that come out. But the most important thing is you can't trust the word they say. Better get that.
Yeah, well said. And I would underline that by saying that we need to understand they're psychopaths, and then beyond that, we don't we should not interact with them because
That's
what
right.
they're trying to do is damage our minds. This is
Yeah,
really what they want to do, and are to move the mind of the population into a place where it's not really operating in self-interest. So because of that, because of the malevolent propaganda that is all that comes out of them,
yeah.
we need to know they're psychopaths, and then we don't need to know anything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's absolutely poison and it poisons people's minds.
Yeah.
And my advice for most normal people is just don't have anything to do with them because you cannot handle them. You cannot deal with it. I mean, I can deal with it, but I've studied them for 20 years and I'm a martial arts expert. I'm tough as nails, I'm not afraid of any man. And so because of all the years I've studied them and because I'm tough and I'm street smart, I was in a street gang when I was 13. I know how
Mm.
these things go. I can deal with them, but 90% of the normies cannot, and they will get overwhelmed by them. It's literally it's a psychic poison they give off. And the same holds true for certain religious groups. I've had so many people that have been swindled by these religious practitioners. Can't say who.
Yeah,
A lot.
but the lies and deception do not stop in the White House or with Trump and with Netanyahu. I'm not going to let Hamas easy off either, because
No, no.
one thing is for sure, all the billions of dollars that flooded into Gaza over the decades, what have they done with it? For instance, they could have built desalination plants and establish a proper water supply for the people. Yeah, now Israel has switched off the water again. Yes, that is inhumane. I get it. But nobody would be in that position if the money had been handled in a different way. And instead of making sure that they have proper water supply, schools, hospitals, whatever. It went into tunnel systems, private jets. It went into five-star hotels, and what have you. So the way I look at it is the Palestinians are being crushed from both sides. I mean, with the Israelis, they know, yeah, they know what to think of them. But Hamas is not on their side either. And so,
Uh, uh, Judith, you're exactly right. I mean, October 7th couldn't have occurred if Hamas was not controlled by Israel.
yeah.
I mean, it was
Absolutely, I
obviously
agree.
a false flag, a theatrical event. Nothing makes any real sense when you look at what happened on that day. I mean, the border technology that the Israelis have, the Elbit systems, are all automated. They could easily, almost by their mechanical definitions, have destroyed these like little rabble gangs that were breaching the fences, but they didn't, and they were able to invade Israel, so-called 15 different places. The IDF didn't show up for hours. I mean, none of this makes any sense from the Israeli side, but from the Hamas side, it doesn't make any sense either. What were they trying to accomplish? What did they think they were going to do? Cut through Israel and unify themselves with the West Bank? I mean, this is just all that they could achieve would be to create the pretext for the Israeli response. So this is what we saw on October the 7th. We saw an organization controlled by Israel, Hamas, um, basically do a pseudo invasion, which then created the real pretext for the real genocide. And that's, this is why, the first thing that anyone saw on October the 7th was the bikini clad, LSD rave dancers at the festival, because this was created the most heinous acts, from the Palestinians, so-called, because people associate Hamas with the Palestinians. In Israel now, that's against the law. They have actually made a law to question the official narrative on October the 7th. And this was done because the public was starting to realize in a larger and larger scale that October the 7th was a false flag. So they've shut off all discussions now. It's against the law. You can go to jail. That's a sure sign that what we saw was, an organized theatrical event. And just as you said, Judith, the Palestinian people are trapped between the political class, which rules them, Hamas, which is something that Israel controls, and the bloodlust of the Israelis to genocide all of the ethnicities that they deem, not part of the population of Israel, which of course is purely racial. And so really what you're seeing there is just Deuteronomy, come to pass. I mean, that's why Netanyahu actually referred to the Palestinians as Amalek, right, which is one of the ethnicities that God gave the Israelis a command to genocide down to the last child. Don't forget that little charming statement inside of Deuteronomy that, it's not just you have to defeat the Amaleks, you've got to destroy them down to the last child. Netanyahu uses the expression knowing perfectly well what the biblical meaning is. And so the Palestinian people are being genocided as a way to establish Eretz Israel, which is a racial state. And so, I mean, this is when you see Trump with his, Trump Gaza and the casinos, and, this is just part of the process. It's just all of this ends up in 100 years with the racial state of Eretz Israel. I mean, the Palestinians will have been evaporated, and then the public will have a misunderstood memory, there of what went on, where they're thinking, well, the Israelis tried to establish a two-party or two-state solution to this, but the Palestinians were just too unreasonable, and so they all got killed. I think that's a good description of what we're in the midst of right now.
Yeah, I have a question. Since day one, Jordan, Egypt, no other Muslim country wants to have the Palestinians. Egypt kept the gate closed, and Jordan does not want to have them either. They are all citing national security. So what is going on there?
Well, I
Why?
mean, just like Hamas is controlled, so are the political classes. Look, the Zionist, Masonic Satanists have specifically focused on controlling the political class of the ethnicities that they engage with. This is their modus operandi everywhere. So when you read about, well, the Egyptians don't want to take in the Palestinians, and then you hear the media idea that the Palestinians are bad people, there's something bad about them, that's why they don't want to take them in. I would just say this sure smells like propaganda to me, and I would like to know, why the political class doesn't support the Palestinians. Why do they put up with the slaughter of Muslims? And I would just, as a historical example, cite when Hussein and Churchill had a discussion about the establishment of Israel. Hussein complained. He said, "Look, I have an agreement, that we will have a pan-Arabian, nation, that we will have control over our own political destinies." And Churchill told him, he said, "You will accept Zionism, you will accept the Balfour Declaration and the establishment of the state of Israel. And if you don't, I will unleash the Saudi Arabian army upon you." So at the very beginning, from that, the so-called House of Saud was under the control of Churchill, who was just the most vicious, satanic Zionist imaginable. And he was in such a position of control that he could order them about like, the pieces on a chessboard. So I would just maintain that control has existed, since the establishment of the Middle East following World War I. They've always controlled the political class. They use them in different ways to create, the idea that there's resistance or, this and that. But believe me, at the end of the day, I would say there is political control over these entities, and the events on October 7th with Hamas is just, can only be explained, frankly. It only becomes coherent in that context, that Hamas is controlled, and the kind of propaganda against the Palestinians, is just part of the process of bamboozling the public into what's going on. And I would just point out that the Palestinians had lived with a perfectly humane and sensible culture that was accepting of Jews and every other religion, and had been going on since the establishment of the Ottoman Empire. They've been living at peace for 500 years. It was only after Zionism came into the region that they even started to think about how they could resist. And so it always upsets me when they cite as an example of like how reasonable the Israelis are the fact that everyone hates the Palestinians. Well, everyone hates the Palestinians because the Israeli propaganda has been everywhere.
Mm-hmm. So, in other words, you think they have been, blackmailed to take their
They're not
position?
blackmailed. They just put them in power. But the people that are placed in power, I mean, I think are either crypto Jews like the House of Saud, or they're people who are direct employees of the Zionist project. I don't know one from the other. I mean, I don't have any way to except just analytically understand the situation, but that I think there is just, when you're dealing in a world of lies, then all you really have to get your way through it is logic and reason. And when you have something completely inexplicable, you have to suspect that there's being manipulation, that the events are not real, that there's propaganda going on. And that's when you then look at this, you can come up with explanations that create coherent understandings of the situation. It's just like October the 7th. I mean, when you look at it as something that was controlled by Israel tip to stern, then everything makes sense. With other explanations, they don't really ring true. So when you look at the Palestinians, the relationship with the other, Arab states, well, I think the Arab states are manipulated.
Okay. Do you want to weigh in, Stefan?
Sure. From a strategic point of view, I can tell you that controlling the opposition is a classic tactic. And so Hamas is an Israeli creation. They started them, guaranteed. I don't know for sure. I don't know, but just from a strategic point of view, that's what I would do. And
Yeah, well, they created it as a counterpart to a PLO.
to the PLO, but even the PLO, I think, was a creation of Israel. I mean, anybody believe that Yasser Arafat character? I remember him from way back there, and I thought, what a clown! The guy was a clown. Wearing his pistol at the UN when he was giving a speech and all. Why would they let him? Anyways, he was again controlled opposition. There is no true opposition to the Israelis anywhere in the world. It doesn't exist. Nobody's actually fighting them. Anybody that would have tried to fight them would have been subverted by now. They would have sent in their assassination squads or the military. Or don't forget that these people also control organized crime. I mean, they'll send in the gangsters, the Albanians or whatever, to kill them all off. There is no real opposition to Israel anywhere in the world. So, and then, the October 5th, October 6th,
7th.
7th,
Yeah.
that was so obviously a false flag attack. I couldn't believe it. Who's going to buy this? I laughed my ass off when they said, "Oh, they came in on hang gliders." Hang gliders.
Just I said that I said, this is just like a bad Chuck Norris movie.
That's what I said. That's from a Chuck Norris movie. Remember what was it, Invasion USA, and the
Yeah.
terrorists came in on hang gliders. Now, I have done a little bit of hang gliding in my time. I can't imagine operating a machine gun while operating a hang glider. I know they were the push gliders, whatever, but it was so laughable. And then it just happened to land in front of it, a rave. Are you kidding me? They had a rave way out there right by the border. And these hang
Yeah.
gliders keep flying in.
It's just ridiculous. It's
It was
absolutely
so
ridiculous.
ridiculous, Joe. I mean, honest to God, who believed it for a moment? I didn't. I saw it right away for the
It goes
pulse
back to your point, is that you're dealing with psychopaths. Psychopaths lie by definition. That's all they do. So you cannot interact. You don't want to interact with them. You don't want to give them the sense or the mental position that I'm dealing with something that could be true. The first reaction is the one that you describe of like, it's just another ridiculous thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the
Um,
way I respond to just about everything that comes out of government. And then,
Yeah.
what Judith was saying that, or was it you, Judith, saying that, they want Ersat, Israel, they want to control it, Egypt and, the whole Middle East. Yeah, that's part of their plan, but that's just a little tiny part of the plan. They
Right.
actually want to control the whole world, not just a few countries in the Middle East. And then, oh, well, how come everybody's rejecting the Palestinians? Well, because they're all work for Israel. The political class, they're psychopaths too. The political class of Saudi Arabia and Syria and Egypt, they're all psychopaths. They know which side the bread is buttered on. It's buttered on the side of Israel. So they take their kickbacks and their foreign donations from America, and they take their money and they spend it on coke and hookers and mansions, and they do what they're told. They're not going to take in the Palestinians. As a matter of fact, I would even be willing to bet that all these Palestinian protests that are occurring in Europe and
mhm.
America and Canada, and they're a huge nuisance to these countries. Why are you protesting in Germany? What's Germany got to do with Palestine? And why are you making such a big nuisance? I guarantee you, I just off the top of my head, but again, from a strategic point of view, all of those Palestinian protests that occur in Western countries are funded and instigated by Israel. Because what does it make Palestinians look good? Are you sympathetic to Palestinians when they're marching down Main Street, USA, and of course not. You get
Interrupting traffic and, throwing Molotov cocktails and things. Yeah. They're literally a propaganda device to make people dislike Palestinians.
Mhm.
absolutely. That's what that's all about. So when people say, "Oh, they're throwing bricks and all," yeah, that's the Israelis are behind that. I bet you half of these people aren't Palestinians either. They're probably
Mhm.
from other parts of the Middle East,
Yeah.
and
So,
and it's all part to make them to demonize them, to blacken their image. So
mhm.
yeah, all of them are in on it. Of course, the Palestinians are screwed. There is no hope for them. There's no saving them, I'm afraid. I
Mhm.
can't, who's going to save them? You need to, bring in, 30,000 man army, and that's never going to happen because who's going to do that?
You know,
Every,
Stefan,
yeah, go
like
ahead.
with Trump, and now he's leading this revolution against woke, you know, political philosophy, which is promoting transgender. It has inclusion, which is irrational because it diminishes meritocracy. And now that Trump is back, the kind of righteous American, sort of ideals will be reestablished. But they've cleverly maneuvered the Palestinian protesters into the collection of characters that Trump is, trying to defeat, so that suddenly to the American mind, you have the transgender, you have, the feminist, politician, and you have the Palestinian protesters, and they're all in this table of undesirables. Even though, the idea that the Palestinian protesters would have some kind of organic relationship to the Democratic Party is absurd because it's so Zionist in and of itself. But I really just go back to your position. They're psychopaths. They are politically organized psychopaths, and they just lie about everything. So we have to organize in a different way than where we're trying to interact with the theater that they're putting on. I mean, I would say, if I was to give advice to the Palestinians, I would say get out. In that area, you're just going to be destroyed. Get out, try to organize yourself someplace else. If you want your land back, you have to think in a very long time scale where you develop some kind of political power, military power, some capacity to, find a way to have some negotiations to bring that about. But at the moment, you don't have any capacity. You don't have any agency. I mean, the Hamas is working with Israel against you. The West is working with Israel against you. If you want to save yourself, to create another generation of Palestinians, you can't do it there. It's not going to happen there. You have to go someplace where you have to find. I mean, the first thing they need to do is to try to establish themselves in a safe place. Trump has said that he would take the Palestinians in to the United States. I would take him up on the offer because even though it's a defeat in the sense that you've lost your homeland where you've been for thousands of years, nevertheless, you have the chance to create another generation of Palestinians and try to assist the information revolution, which basically would be promoting exactly the concepts that Stefan just articulated, where the whole world is dominated by the satanic Zionists. So everyone needs to understand this, and then from that information point, try to have political activity. But at the moment, we're so confused, and I don't want to just keep reiterating Stefan's ideas, but I mean it's just so clear-minded that's really what needs to occur politically. The idea of like Hamas or the Palestinians organizing themselves militarily, I mean, these are ludicrous ideas. They're just going to be crushed like a bug underneath a steamroller. So to create another generation, get out, reestablish yourself, try to retain your culture, your history, and then spread the truth. This is what we can do. These are things we can do. I mean, Stefan is it's interesting to hear him talk because he is a strategist. And I think he would agree, Stefan, that that's strategy that is not currently well organized in, the world in terms of like how to resist our situation. So this is kind of what I would do. I mean, I would encourage the Palestinians to connect with people like Stefan who can help them organize strategy, long-term, generational strategy. And I would say that to almost anyone. I always say, like people ask me, they go, well, how do we rebel? And I say, well, the first thing you have to do is get healthy. Your sperm count is 1/2 of what it should be. If you're a male, your testosterone is so low. You don't have any physical capacity to defend yourself. You don't have any expertise in martial arts or intellectual arts, right? So you need to build up your own strength, physical, biological, spiritual strength. Stop eating junk food, stop eating junk ideas. You can do this. And if you become more physically potent, then you will have the capacity to develop the strategies that Stefan is talking about. you can't relate to someone like him or like anyone who has clear-mindedness if you're just a dying weakling. There's nothing you can do. All you're going to do is die. All your ideas are going to be stupid. Your mind's not working. You've got to develop strength, and then from there you can develop strategy. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Stefan? That's kind of like where we're at, just.
Yes, yes, we are, Joe, and which, comes up to my other book. Like the first book on strategy, the reason I wrote that was because people don't understand that how the world works and the kind of ruthless, cunning, backhanded tactics and strategies the political class use on you. So if you become, have at least a passing knowledge of strategy, you can see what is being used against you, the methods that they use to control you and exploit you. And so, yeah, but then the second book, or more recent book, is The Way of the Warrior. And I wrote that because now it sounds, like militaristic and all that, but it's not really. Way of the Warrior is like a spiritual path. You have to be strong. You have to be a stoic. You have to be self-disciplined, and you have to be tough. You cannot employ these strategies if you're a weakling. So all the soy boys and Berkeley graduates, they can't handle this kind of truth. You got to be tougher, and we've seen part of the programming is to destroy masculinity. Men that can think for themselves, and they know right from wrong, and you get your hands off that kid, and that's pretty much dying now. There's a few people left, but we need to resurrect that as well. And what I would say to the Palestinians is, Sun Tzu wrote that you do not fight a battle you cannot win. And unfortunately, Palestinians cannot win this battle. And what you said is correct. Get out. You have to get out. If Trump's willing to let you into the States, go there. Personally, I don't want Canada flooded with Palestinians. We've already got enough foreigners here. But, after
I
you
don't either. I mean, in the U.S., but I mean, I would just say as a Palestinian, that would be the option I would take.
yeah,
In terms of the U.S., we don't have an economy that can really, I mean, provide enough jobs for the next generation that we currently have, let alone adding in more immigrants. But
yeah,
all I can say is that for the Palestinians, that would be the option I would recommend.
yeah, yeah. Get out. Maybe, I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe Armenia can take them in or something like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
there's some. I mean, I would look at all the options and just find a place, where you can establish yourself as a community and try to retain your culture and history, and then develop strength.
Yes, and what you said there, establish yourself as a community, is my latest strategy, because after the Palestinians, guess who else? Guess who else is on the chopping block?
Well, I'd say all Europeans would be.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Europeans, I don't like to say the color. I hate when they call us, a color blanc. We're Western Europeans, descendants of Europeans. We are on the chopping block. And we are in a battle that we can't win because, they own everything. They own everything. The banks, the governments, the military, the police, the judiciary, the corporations, the media. Come on, how can we fight them? But my strategy for the Europeans is that we form into autonomous communities, mutual aid societies. We help each other out. We maintain our culture. That's another thing that I encourage, is that, learn how to sing the songs that your grandparents sung, right? Do you know any of the old music, any of the old songs, any of the old instruments, and the traditions too? I follow old European traditions. So maintain your culture, maintain your heritage, work together in small communities. And I've been successful in helping quite a few communities get started. And we have to survive this because what will happen is, what always happens is in the end, these psychopaths turn on each other,
Right.
right? They always cut each other's throats. This happens over and over again in history. As soon as somebody becomes king of the world, now he's got to watch everybody, his wife, his kids, his parents, his uncles, everybody's out to kill him. So let them tear each other apart, but we maintain our communities. We grow our own gardens. My community, we have our own communications. We have our own security. We have our own medical team. We have our own garden team. We work with the Amish farmers and distribute food and things like that so that we don't rely on the government. The government is your enemy, always has been your enemy, and always will be your enemy. I can't believe people believe the government. Since recorded history, government has been the enemy of humanity.
Mm.
When
So
they first
the,
discovered.
the last remaining minutes, I would
Yes,
like to touch on the fact that now Trump has, yeah, he has canceled all military aid for Ukraine. And so, what is, in light of what we have talked about, how do you see that? Joe, would you like to start?
The Ukrainian situation is just another iteration of the Gaza situation. I
Mhm.
mean, both sides are controlled. I think Putin is under Zionist control, and I think Zelensky, of course, is as well. And
Yeah,
so, really, the purpose of the war is simply to reduce European population. There's no other
yeah.
reason for it. There's a lot of crazy, propaganda explanations. Again, it goes to the idea of the inexplicable being usually a cover for evil. Um, so the thing that going on now between Trump and Zelensky, it wouldn't surprise me if Trump, you know, broke away from the support, and that this was then ultimately they do have to come to some end of the war at some point, because it'll become too obvious that it's just a theatrical production for the purpose of exterminating Europeans if they, went down to the very last Ukrainian, right? So they will probably, I mean, if you look what they've done, half the country is left, or 40%, some number. They've had another million casualties. I mean, who knows? The numbers are impossible to get. And then all of the wounded. So the country is basically destroyed. There's really nothing left of the Ukraine. It'll be another Trump Gaza situation if Trump has his way. This mineral deal is just rank colonialization. I mean, the contract actually looks a lot like the contract that the East Indian Trading Company gave to the colonies it set up, where, we'll take half of everything and in return we won't destroy you. So it's rank colonialization. It's evil. There's really nothing, that it's almost unhidden. It's almost something. It's just overt at this point. The advice that we have discussed in terms of the Palestinians would be the same one I would give to the Ukrainians: is just do everything possible to stay in existence, which is, first of all, stop fighting the war. The war is just designed to exterminate you. So leave the country if you can. And if you have to stay, then, don't go into the army. If you're in the army, find a way to rebel, find a way to, use your position as a soldier to find some way to put pressure on the political class, publicity, something, to get the war stopped as soon as possible. It's almost after the fact. I mean, the nation has been destroyed down to the point where it's getting obvious that the war was artificial. So I think we're close to the end no matter what. right? I mean, how many more Ukrainians can they, kill? It's
Yeah,
just so,
when I look at the EU currently, they are
yeah,
going totally nuts, and now they want to have this package for Ukraine with $700
yeah,
billion,
yeah,
and that is suicidal for the EU countries. And we recently had elections here, and that. That guy who is in charge now, he said even before he was elected, he wanted to give Russia 48 hours. And if you do not stop the war, and then we will send the Tauros and we will attack you in your home country. I can't believe the Germans voted that idiot in. I'm
Well,
really.
did they though? Did they though?
yeah, yeah. It's just ridiculous, and um, I mean, the only thing that can happen at this point is either they'll end the war, or it will expand, and they'll use it as a larger meat grinder to kill even more Europeans. I mean, you can bring in Poland and Germany and UK, these troops, but the fact is that Europe has so few troops at this point that are battle ready. I mean, I don't think they could even, the whole continent could muster 50, 60,000. That's
You
just not
know,
a drop in the
Germany has ammunition for 2 to 4 days.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the only good news here is that the politicians are mostly bluster because they don't have enough conventional arms to fight with, and they don't have any troops to send into the meat grinders. So I'm the situation is so tragic. It is just, I mean, from my position, you're just watching a broader Palestinian meat grinder. And this one is the one that Stefan described, where the Europeans are now being thrown into it.
Yeah,
Mm.
we're on the chopping block for that one. I mean, when it all started, it was ridiculous. Who couldn't see through this? It's like Rhode
Yeah.
Island declaring war on the United States. Oh, let's send
Yeah.
billions of dollars to Rhode Island so they can defeat you. What don't you people understand about military strategy and tactics and economics and the way the world and then they threw all this money on there and well, of course we know all kicked back to the politicians anyways. But it's sad when you see those videos of those young men being rounded up in the Ukraine and thrown into the press gangs
Yeah.
and sent to the front line where they last about 3 hours. I
Mm.
mean, and I agree with Joe. Putin's in on it, and so is Zelensky. Well, they're both Jewish, and they're both Zionists. So uh, it's just another staged event, but with the horrible consequences of killing lots of people.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable how this goes on and on. But what I tell
Yeah.
people is look after yourself, make sure you have extra food and medicine in the house. Make sure you have people that you trust. Survive the next 10 years. Then we'll see what happens. But right now, it's a total shit show.
Yeah, I agree. Really good advice is just try to um, create local power in
Yes.
terms of food, in terms of medicine. The more you can, create local power, the better. Um, and from there, larger political concepts can emerge, but they'll never come into existence if we just keep getting picked off in isolation,
Yeah.
keep letting our bodies become weaker and weaker. I mean, so yeah, the start local and start inside yourself, and then with your friends, just develop strength on that level.
Look, if we don't survive, then there is no future.
Yeah,
So we have to survive. You got to, make sure your family survives, your kids, and then your community and the people around you. Otherwise, I mean, once they've controlled everybody and murdered everybody, well,
yeah,
well, there's no chance of bouncing back from that.
Well, guys, I have to run. I have to go, and my contractor's here, and I got to keep him from burning the house down. That's the local problem I've got. Stefan, it's been a pleasure. I hope we can do this again. Judith, see if you can arrange it. It's
Yeah, sure.
almost difficult to be on a podcast with Stefan because I can't find anything I can fault him for or disagree with. But it's a pleasure to be with both of you, and let's get together again soon, okay?
Yeah, we will
And
do that.
so,
All right,
right
guys.
back at you, buddy.
Talk to you, brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Now he is frozen.
Well, I guess he signed out.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I can. It looks a little bit weird. And now he's gone. See?
Well, that was very nice. I really like Joe. I really like him. I think
Yeah.
we have great.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to do this again, remember this was my idea.
Yeah, good. And I was scheduled with Joe alone because we both thought you would need a little bit more time to recover.
Oh no, I'm fine now. You know,
Oh,
it's
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, but he didn't show up, so I don't know what happened there.
oh, the last time?
Mhm.
No, but I did manage to contact him and told him.
No. I know that. I'm not talking about that. So we decided we talk about something else, Joe and I, and he said, "Yeah, sure, we can do that." And then I was sitting here, and he didn't show. So I don't
Oh,
know.
well, see,
Yeah.
he was waiting for me.
No.
Oh, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. I know.
Yeah. Yeah, Stefan, thank you for
Yeah,
coming.
Judith.
And
Mhm.
yeah, we will do this again. And yeah, interesting times.
Uh, I don't know, Judith. I keep fighting. I keep fighting because there are children in the world, and children are still innocent. They haven't been indoctrinated yet. They haven't learned to be narcissists or psychopaths. Once in a while, I get one. And I see my granddaughter, my grandson, and I think, if we don't fight it, what kind of world are they going to grow up in? They don't
Mm,
stand a chance. They will never know the freedom and happiness and high trust society that we grew up in as Europeans. And so I've had a good life. So if I spend the rest of my life fighting these bastards, then that's what I'll do. That's my purpose in life is to fight these bastards every chance I get.
yeah. Okay. So, guys,
Okay.
that was it. Night flight for today. And we see you on the next one.